It's Trading Tip Tuesday. Let's give away some tips. Today I wanted to talk about the Pitchfork, one of my favorite indicators. One of the indicators that people love to hate on the most. I don't know why. I think it's an incredible resource for estimating expectations for a trend's rate of change over time. So what you're seeing now is the original, the OG that started it all, that piqued my interest into the Pitchfork realm, is the BTCUSD Pitchfork from 2015. So I'll explain this as I go along, and it will become fairly obvious, hopefully, across the 20 or so charts I have to show. But the rules are simple. On TradingView or most charting platforms, you should be able to see the option for a Pitchfork. This is the log scale, by the way, so if you're not using log scale, it'll look a lot different. But the idea is you want to find a clearly defined range. That's step one. If price is all over the place, if there's no obvious rate of change, there isn't usually an obvious pitchfork. And I'll show more examples of that as I go along here. But that's the first step. You want to find a rate of change. You want to pick 3 points. So my TradingView account, I think there's a chart as early as 2016 showing this trend. So you want to identify this as early as possible in the trend, obviously. That's step one. Even if you're late, though, you can use it as a reference continuously throughout the trend. So the first step is you pick 3 points, and it has to be 3 points that are actually price points. I do use wicks. You don't have to. I do. Especially in crypto, the exchanges aren't exactly known for their stacked order books on both sides. Sometimes things get a little crazy, and sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles with price. But I use the wicks for everything, so that's important. I'm using candlesticks and not using the line chart here. What I sometimes do is fit the pitchfork on the candlestick chart and then just turn it on line, and that'll clean things up. You can see this is obviously super messy and there's a lot of colors and noise and whatever. So here are some more rules. Rule number one, high probability price will reach the median line, that's this yellow line here, after you've drawn it or realize that it's there. The median line will act as a magnet for price. And you'll see examples of this over and over and over again. Price will be up here, price will be down here. If this pitchfork on any chart is somewhat intact, the market will recognize unconsciously that there is some sort of rate of change here. Now this is probably the most insane example of it because it's going back 6 years now. And maybe I'm crazy for saying it's still valid, but in my mind, in my heart's desire, this pitchfork has lived on through all of us. Number two, price will either reverse at the ML, zoom through it, or consolidate near it, which honestly on paper says nothing because it means it'll go up or down or nothing, right? Sideways. But the point is here that the median line is a focal point for everything in the trend because it is the expected rate of change. So you'll see just on this example, tons of wicks, tons of examples that'll just go to the other edge of the pitchfork, tons of examples where it'll consolidate at that level before breaking up or breaking down. And here's a massive example that it just goes right through, right? You can use this as a gauge in your head mentally. How bullish are we? How bearish are we? If it's a bullish pitchfork, it's another thing I should say. If they're pointing up, they're bullish. If they're pointing down, they're bearish. Hopefully that's fairly obvious. If we're at the bottom of the pitchfork, that's the buy zone. If we're at the top, that's the sell zone. You don't often see examples like this. This is one of the rarest examples I've seen of just a pitchfork having a very clean rate of change throughout 2 years and then just exploding above it. What you'd do in this case is just draw another one. So you'd go anchor, 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 and you'd get this expected rate of change at that point. But in my head, the median line is the magnet. The pitchfork itself is an oscillator, just telling you overbought, oversold. And if price treats the median line as support from the upside, you can say there's a decent chance that it'll bounce back to that overbought territory. If it treats it as resistance, there's a decent chance it'll bounce back down to the buy zone. And I'll show this on several other examples, but one more obvious rule, price often finds support or resistance at the median line parallel. So the lines in the pitchfork can be based on anything you want them to be based on. And the idea is to pick 3 points, and you need to find validity within price. So yes, you are curve fitting, you're back testing the history of the pitchfork, of those lines, does price actually look like it's hitting those levels? You know, when it hits these levels on the dollar, I think to myself, okay, maybe there's something here, right? Or maybe it's all voodoo witchcraft. But these parallel channels together help you decide, you know, where's that median line? It's all about the median line. And another rule, when price reverses before reaching the median line, it will often move more in the opposite direction than when it was moving towards the median line. I think this rule is kind of bogus, but it's from some Pitchfork people who know more about Pitchforks than I do. And another obvious rule is when we break down below the Pitchfork, typically, but not always, that invalidates the Pitchfork. I'll explain that more on some other charts. But, you know, that was the big reason why I sort of wrote this off in 2018, 2019, that this thing was dead, right? Because we were clearly below the Pitchfork here. We're clearly below the Pitchfork all of 2020, right? Like, common sense says, okay, this thing's obviously done, right? We're not going to actually come back to this anytime soon. You know, maybe we're just here because we're here. There's no real reason to it. But anyway, so this is the Pitchfork for me that started it all, mainly for this exact 2015 through 2017 price action. It was too clean, too perfect, made too much sense to ignore this tool. All right, let's look at current BTCUSD. Again, 3 points. This is timeless as well, so you can look at this in any time frame you want. 2-day, 3-day, weekly, 4-hour, doesn't matter. When you're drawing this, you want to use the strong magnet tool on TradingView on the left side. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble like lining up the exact anchor. So mastering that is easy, but important. You want to line up the anchor points here. So in late April, let's say, you know, there was very clearly a parallel channel here. And there's a very clearly a Pitchfork here. You know, you can look at my Twitter or whatever if you want to see how the expectation of this trade was building up. The expectation, once you find a Pitchfork that's valid, is that the price will hit the median line. That is the expectation. The other expectations are, again, buy zone down here, sell zone up here. The third expectation is we will explore the top side of this Pitchfork at some point in time. And the fourth expectation is, you know, just as we were below it, expecting median line touch, when we get above here, we're expecting a median line touch, which is another reason why I treat it as an oscillator mentally in my head. And hopefully all this starts to make sense. It's like, okay, yes, this is an overbought RSI territory. This is oversold, even though it doesn't necessarily look like that on RSI or any momentum indicator. You're just drawing out the rate of change, the mean target, and then you're just getting mean reversions up and down as you go. Another way I can use this, which is where the famed 33K by July target came from, is you can draw a Pitchfork like this and you can say there's a pretty high degree of certainty that if we are above the Pitchfork, again, we're going to test these upper levels at some point. So you can make crazy target predictions like 93K by July and say that's probably going to be the maximum upside potential at that point in time. The 33K price target was from a Pitchfork back here that had a median line at 33K by July. So to me, this is saying 35.8 is the median target by July this year. And then 6 figures max by the end of the year based on this current rate of change. Let's look at ETH and why I think ETH's in a little bit of trouble here on the overbought territory. Now, unless ETH acts like BTC did in mid-2017, this is likely going to attempt to retrace to the median line, which is why as a trader, I see this on the Pitchfork. I know what I know about Pitchforks. I know that this is valid. It bounced on this median line 6-7 times. It bounced here, got destroyed. You know, like all this lines up for me in my head. It says, okay, what I'm seeing here looks legit. Something else you'll often notice is you'll get a lot of price action at the anchor point, the anchor diag. Originally, there was a Pitchfork with here, here, and here as 3 anchor points that clearly got invalidated quite quickly. And then you get this new established range. And here we are, right, months later. But if it gets invalidated, it gets re-validated, you just draw it again. It's highly subjective. It's meant to be subjective. It's highly dependent on price action. And that's okay. You know, not everything's going to be black and white. Some things are going to take a little finesse. But back to the current ETH price, it is poking above the Pitchfork here. The expected rate of change is too slow for what's going on right now. So either we're about to draw a new Pitchfork like we did for BTC in 2017, or this is going to return to the median line. Probability in my head says this is probably going to want to relax, slow down. It may explode up, but it will, I'm invariably sure of this call, it will return to the median line sometime this year, whether it's at 600 or 800 by December 31st, 2021. How you trade that is obviously up to you, but it should help inform your trading decisions going forward. Let's keep looking at some more. Here's ETHBTC daily. Again, doesn't matter. What is this showing you? I'm showing you Pitchforks, folks. I've never seen myself. I'm just pulling up a chart. I'm drawing things. Okay. And hey, look, this looks valid, right? We're bouncing on all sorts of levels. We're bouncing on the median line here. We broke through the median line. We've been below the median line since late 2018. It's clearly bearish. It's slightly downsloping here. We actually didn't even bounce on the expected bounce point. We bounced a little lower. So in that I see this, and it actually is a bottom. Not that I hope it's a bottom. Like, you know, it's not October, August, September 2019 where I can just draw this and say, yeah, this is a bottom. I'm going to buy here. No. When it's a definitive bottom, when it's an obvious bottom like it is here, you can say, okay, I'm going to add some more wings to this pitchfork, add some more levels. You can do that in the settings. This is like 1.15, 1.2, whatever fits, right? You're curve fitting this on purpose. That's the important part here. You're curve fitting this because you want to see if it looks good. And I mean, these parallel lines, right? I've never seen this before, but it looks legit to me. And once again, these parallel lines look legit to me. So to me, this says, again, price is going to want to return to the median line. Maximum upside potential 0.1 based on the bottoms here, based on adding the wings. We're still in downside of the pitchfork. It's bearish. You know, you have to go through all these motions in your head. It's bearish. It's pointing down. It's not that bearish. We're very near the median line. If we break above the median line, there's plenty of upside, right? And this is just one version. Let's say you want to use even more of the chart, and you could say, all right, maybe this, you know, the brown zone, as I call it, is an important level to watch for the parallels. Very clearly, we're getting support resist levels at the median line. So to me, these are both equally valid. It just depends on what you want to watch. You could treat this as monthly pivots versus yearly pivots, you know, zoomed in, zoomed out, whatever you want to think of it as. The next upside target here would be 0.45 or something, and that'll keep moving down as time goes on. But both look fine to me as far as, you know, you're finding your anchor points. Does price care, right? That's what you're looking for here. Price seems to actually super care about these points, and then you're just trading it as support resist levels. And you can even trade these parallels as, you know, buy zone, sell zone, depending on what time frame, what leverage, what sizing you're using for your trades. Let's look at some more. Let's look at XRP. So this is a bearish pitchfork. Again, I'm added wings here because it was a clear bottom. And what do you know? We get price action above a bearish pitchfork, but it isn't quite above, you know, the invalidation levels because there was a level to the downside where it bounced. So it actually was super bearish here and bounced. So even though it's bullish here, the expectation is it's going to maintain above the pitchfork, in the pitchfork, sorry. You can even add another level here if you want. I just didn't. And you can see here, a couple things. You know, it bounced here 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 times. I don't know. And at some point you got to say, okay, it's clearly above the pitchfork, right? For several weeks, maybe several months at this point. It's not just a one and done situation. And even though it was all the way up here, it returned to the median line. You know, this is the expectation for ETH when I see it where it's at. You know, maybe that expectation is incorrect because that's bullish, this is bearish. I don't think so. But the lesson here is when you're looking for invalidation, you know, if let's say you're an XRP bull, you're waiting to know when to be more bullish. You're watching stuff like this, waiting for invalidation, and then longing the chart or looking for longs at that point in time. You can say, okay, it's been out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be. At some point, you got to say to yourself, okay, you know, obviously the bear trend is over, right? Very clearly, this hit some sort of consolidation period sideways, didn't make lower lows, didn't keep retracing to the median line, right? So that invalidation criteria is important to sort of know for yourself. But even if you're bearish on a project or a pair, you got to be realistic. Here's LINKBTC, another really good example. Stayed within the pitchfork, sell zone, buy zone. And you got to realize, okay, you know, when it's time to throw in the towel on that trade, I think the important thing here is it bounced in the red parallel several times and then failed to do so. So you either got to say to yourself, okay, this is the best risk reward I've seen in years, or maybe it's over, you know? You got to ask yourself that. Very extreme case here, very clearly over as far as the bull trend is concerned. And you can always look to other things like the 200-day moving average. But once again, these levels look like they mattered. The median line mattered the entire time. It certainly mattered here, and it certainly mattered here. Here's LINKBTC. Again, sell zone, buy zone. You can add wings to this if you want. You can add more wings to this. Look at this median line. Look at these touches. This is like, it's living here. It's literally living at the median line. It's taken up a residency at the median line. So to me, that just validates the pitchfork, says, okay, yeah, this is legit. Buy zone, sell zone. You know, I bought some down here personally just because it looked like this pitchfork's going to hold for quite some time. Here's EOSBTC. Great example. Again, look at all these touches of the median line, support, resistance, whatever you want to call it. The other parallels matter. Here's a great example. Look how oversold it got and bounced back into the pitchfork. You know, maybe this goes to zero from here, but this basically says too much too soon, bounce back up, and it's considering all this upcoming stuff a buy zone. And you're going to see that with a lot of alts right now. Here's the EOS dollar pair starting to look a lot like Ripple did before the breakout, in that it's finally above the bearish pitchfork for several weeks, months at this point. It attempted to dip back in, got rejected, got bought up. You can see this as it is above, far above the median line. You know, I added this wing, so this should be invalidated at this point. So this is kind of the earliest I'd look at this and say, okay, at the very least, I'm going to stop shorting EOSUSD and should consider longs in the near future, depending on, you know, obviously your feelings on the project are another thing. But this looks very much like the early stages of the bullishness we saw in Ripple USD. Here's TAZBTC. Sometimes they don't always look like they matter. In this case, you know, we had this crazy volatility, crazy upside, back to the median line, no real downside, below the median line, and then all of a sudden it just went, right? So the question here is, do we care about this pitchfork? Is it super valid? You know, should we add some wings to this? I think for me, it's still valid, because if it breaks below the pitchfork, I'm no longer sure that it's in some sort of bull trend. You know, very clearly it was consolidating, ranging up there. But if something is established, even though it doesn't look pretty, and then it breaks below, that's really, I'm out. That's not my game, right? And let's say we add some like massive wing, like this is 2x, right? There's another short entry down here if you miss this one, you know, and you can play around with that more, depending if you're comfortable adding wings to the levels to the pitchfork. But this is just further validating, yeah, this is super bearish, right? We can also look at TAZBTC with this pitchfork and say, yes, you know, it's ranging, it's respecting these levels, and then all of a sudden it's not supporting at the median line. It's a different story, right? And down here, it is just breaking all the rules. You know, it is breaking below a bearish pitchfork more than it should. You know, it should have supported by now if it's going to support, and it just hasn't. You know, there's something fundamentally wrong here that even the pitchfork is like, whoa, this is a lot. And let's say you want to zoom in on that specific range. Here's the 8-hour. The first thing, you know, just look for the parallels, just look for the channel and sort of draw the anchor last. But you can clearly see there's 2 points here. We put an anchor up here. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, it's valid. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay. Now here's the bottom, here's the top, right? Here's the median line. Very clearly just cruising above or below that. Clearly buy zone, sell zone. So I don't expect this pair to be bullish until it's above, you know, this specific pitchfork, just because of how oversold it is. And you can kind of do the same thing for ETHUSD. Sort of zoom in. This is still the daily for ETHUSD, but if you zoom in, even on this zoomed in pitchfork, you're getting to just insane levels. And maybe this is more appropriate for the current price action with a median line basically at 900 currently, and that'll keep going up. So maybe the ultimate sell zone is nearer to all-time highs than the high capture ETHUSD pitchfork is. few more here just to bring home that point. Here's ZCashBTC. Again, just the beauty of this support here breaking down, the beauty of the downside being support, upside being resistance, and we're once again approaching buy zone for ZBTC. Monero, same thing. We get this weird looking, sometimes the points aren't so obvious, and sometimes the anchor points are below the first anchor point. Nonetheless, still mildly bullish, pointing up, adding a wing here because we get all this downside. And wouldn't you know it, we find resistance at this weird spot up here. I don't know. I'm a science guy, okay, but this looks like there's something. I don't know what it is. Some sort of magic in the air. But you can't really draw this one bullish any other way because you get a new lower low here. So you'd have to find your anchor way, way down prior to 2018 in order to finagle this into a bullish pitchfork. So at the end of the day, all these are just channels. If you prefer to use channels, maybe it's easier for you. But pay attention to the median line. Learn how to draw them. Learn how to use them. I'm telling you, they're going to be highly valuable, highly profitable. Learn the probabilities. Learn the reversal points. Use it to help reel in leverage, size, and trading decisions. And hopefully it will help you become a more profitable trader.